Deanna Scaldaferri, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your story with the audience. And some of the work that you're doing is very important to me because it is through that type of work that I was able to start seeing some true healing versus traditional Western medications for
Absolutely.
depression, anxiety, all those different things. So I want to be able to allow the audience to get some insight into other modalities outside of traditional
Absolutely.
medicine.
For sure. I believe they complement each other in that there's a place for Western medicine and there's a place for more holistic medicine, and they can work in synergy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me give the audience a brief introduction here for you, just so they get a little bit of a feel of what you do and who you are. You are a licensed massage and bodywork therapist. You completed your formal training from the Finger Lakes School of Massage and have a bachelor's degree in business administration, international business from Iona University. You're an Usui Holy Fire Reiki Master and intuitive life coach, offering mind, body, and spirit healing support. You're the founder of Healing Hands by Deanna, providing massage, Reiki, and transformational coaching services. You're also a community leader and a survivor. As an advocate, you facilitate narcissistic abuse recovery support groups in Charlotte and Raleigh, and you speak publicly on healing and recovery.
Yes. Thank you so much. That's a nice introduction.
And you're welcome. I try to take that off of the guest. I know a lot of podcasts will ask the guest to tell the audience about themselves, and I've always recognize that as a on the spot type of a thing, and you usually forget a whole bunch of things that you could say. So I
Well,
try to
sure.
take
It's hard
I
to
try,
talk about yourself sometimes, right? Like sell
yeah,
yourself. So
it's
from
not
somebody
something.
else's perspective, it comes off different.
Yeah. So I like to start off each one of these episodes with my only structured question. Everything else is just fly by the seat of my pants and my own intuition.
Okay.
And that is, where were you born and what was life like as a kid for Deanna?
We're going way back.
Yes.
Okay. I was born in the Bronx in New York,
Okay.
but I did grow up outside the city. So I joke that, it seems when people say, oh, I was born in the Bronx, they think I'm very, very tough. But actually, I grew up in the suburbs of the Bronx in New York. So about an hour outside of Manhattan. What was
Okay.
my child like? Lived in the suburbs. I have an older sister, younger brother. My dad was an entrepreneur. He owned several. Well, he was a carpenter by trade. He built many things, homes and things with his hands. But he owned pizza shops in New York, at which, as a kid, I
Yeah.
frequently worked at in the summers, which was great. I'm Italian American, so we do love food and pizza and pasta and that kind of thing. So it played a very big role in our lives, not only the pizza, but also Sundays were about, family, Sunday dinner, pasta, meatballs, that kind of thing. Which was, those traditional family values, which as a kid, when you're growing up, again, you don't think much of that kind of thing. But as you get
Right.
older, and especially I feel that when I had a family of my own, you really hone in on that. Those values are important about family, sticking with you and staying strong as a unit. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I had, obviously no one's childhood is perfect, and everyone has struggles and challenges. But overall, I can say that we had a very loving childhood with both my parents. My dad worked a lot. My mom was more home with us as kids.
Oh,
She went back to work as we got older. But overall, we had again certain struggles, but nothing that I could say is traumatic in that sense. Yeah,
gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
How about grandparents? Did you have grandparents around as a kid and growing up? Were they
Um,
involved?
Sure, just on my mom's side. So my mom's mom and dad were alive and in our lives, and actually they were my grandparents and my godparents as well. But my dad's parents, my grandparents on my dad's side, I never met. They passed prematurely when my dad was actually young. So I only heard
Mm,
stories and saw pictures, heard many, many stories. My dad was a fantastic storyteller and he loved sharing stories about his family. And, to the point where, of course, as we got older, we're like, Dad, we've heard that story like 50 times. Okay. Like, but at the same time, I think about that now as, speaking like that's how you drive points home, right? Repetition and just anything like what we do in our world of like educating or sharing, like it's sharing a story. And more, some people are more naturally gifted in storytelling than others. And I think I appreciate a lot more of that of my dad now as an adult and the work that I do.
yeah,
But yeah, he loved telling stories. So I feel like even though I didn't know my grandparents on his side or even some of my aunts and uncles that passed, we had many, many stories. So
nice, nice.
yeah.
How about elementary school for you? Was that something that was enjoyable? And were you one of the kids that would sit towards the back of the class, or were you more interested in sitting up front,
Hmm.
getting recognized, paying more attention to what was going on?
Those are interesting questions. Okay, yeah, I'm like going back in the archives in my mind. I would say I would sit in front of the class. I was definitely
Okay.
more of the teacher's pet kind of student type of thing, and
Yeah.
not
Right.
looking for like necessarily recognition, like, but it was more that I was a good student. I wanted to please my teachers, do well. I also, I was literally the first kid in my class in second grade to get glasses. So I really couldn't see very well. So I wanted to be up front
Okay.
also. That was a little second grade, I remember being a little, again, not traumatic, but to the point of like kids made fun because I had 4 eyes, the whole thing, right? I was the only kid in
Yeah.
my class that had glasses until a few others did. But yeah, I definitely wasn't shy. I feel like I've always been outgoing, more extroverted,
Mhm.
but I've also recognized these are the things you look back on in hindsight that I've always, even since elementary school, I've always had like a few really close friends. I was never about like, oh, I want to have as many friends as I can, be that like
Yeah.
popular girl type of thing, even into high school. I just valued the quality versus quantity type of thing. Um,
Yeah.
Other than that, I would say, I was heavier as a child, so it's definitely have struggled with my weight all of my life. It's kind of been like this up
Okay.
and down roller coaster. And again, at this point, we can joke about it, but I come from an Italian family, and food is pretty much the focus. Food and family are the focus of our
Right.
lives. And
Yeah.
we joke about it as adults that we're eating one meal and talking about what we're going to have at the next meal while we're still eating one already. But so I've always just kind of struggled, but I that plays into elementary school that I wasn't very athletic and I was always the last kid to be picked, for a school team and when you're
Okay.
in, PE or gym class where you're picking for your teams. I was definitely that last person that nobody wanted on their team.
Yeah.
Which I can laugh about now, but obviously as a kid, yes, that was very upsetting, of course.
Yeah.
I think a lot of things, Rich, honestly, it's like everything in hindsight. I look back at some of those things that were hurtful and painful, maybe, or getting your feelings hurt type of thing as a kid. Now I just own like that's just not who I'm not the athlete. I'm not that person and that's okay. I have other strengths and gifts, but when you're,
Yeah.
in elementary school into middle school, high school, you just want to fit in. You want to belong, right? And
Yeah.
anything that you stand out. I had glasses, braces, wasn't very athletic. So, I mean, these are like a few marks, few check marks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went to a very small Catholic elementary school. So our classes were we had,
Okay.
15 students. So if you were on the outs with somebody, there really was no escaping that type of thing.
Exactly. The aspect of feeling self-conscious quite often, did you also have, a sense at that point in time of being sensitive to things that weren't necessarily right in front of you and going on in the world?
Yes. I definitely this great question, Rich. I definitely recognize that I was different in a certain way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was sensitive that I cried a lot. Like I would get very upset. My feelings would get hurt very easily. I took things very personal. And as a kid, again, you think everybody's like that. Family members and people would, or, people at school or teachers would call it out that, oh gosh, you're so sensitive, like, but in a negative way, right?
Right.
Saying like, what's wrong with you? You're always crying. You're always upset. And it was that I just took things, especially you can say like in elementary school with kids, again, girls can be cruel. Girls can be,
Yeah.
and so again, you had you're in, then you're out, you're in the group this week, next week you're not type of thing. And I took that stuff very personally. And there were situations where, yeah, it didn't feel right. And it's interesting because some of those things I can now, as an adult and the work that I do, trace back to narcissistic traits. But again, as a kid, I would have never recognized. All I recognized as a kid was it didn't feel nice.
Yeah.
So starting from elementary school and up, I was under the impression that being sensitive and really like kind of like feeling my emotions was not a good thing and was not
Right.
okay. And I believe, and this has probably happened to other people, that I was then like subconsciously I learned to hide that, right? It's like if I'm crying and that makes other people uncomfortable and they're telling me to stop and I'm too sensitive and it doesn't make me feel good, well then next time I'm going to cry in my closet or type of thing.
Yeah.
So, right, you learn to hide that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, I know we're going to get deeper into like the more spiritual things, but I will say that it's something that I do remember as a kid in elementary school age, probably like 8, 9, 10, that I used to go for walks and I used to talk. Basically, I didn't realize, but I put it all together as an adult. I used to talk to angels and I would just, talk and, just, I don't know, it was my connection with God and the angels. But I think I must have said something. This came back in a meditation like years ago. I must have said something to someone in my family and they told me like, you better not do that or not admit that to people. And
Oh,
basically then
wow.
it like shut it down. It was almost like, oh, that's not okay. That's taboo. I'm going to just
Yeah.
keep that to myself type of thing. And honestly, Rich, I think this happens to a lot of people. Kids, when babies are born and we're kids are so innocent, right? We're so not
Yeah.
jaded from the world. And we're all spiritual beings, but kids, you have that innocence and the spirituality piece. And that's why you see, kids pick up on so many different things that as adults we don't. But as
Right.
you get older, the world, society, family, friends try to tell you like that's not okay. So you basically start to learn to shut it off or dim it or hide it. And that's where I feel, at least in the stage of my life now, and what I help a lot of people with is almost reconnecting to that piece of ourselves
Yeah.
that we've had all along. It was just almost muted.
Yeah, for sure. Did your siblings give you any support at that point in time in life when you're kind of getting picked on in school? And so were they close enough to be able to recognize some of that? Or was it a scenario where you may have got some of that even at home from them, being the
Uh
middle child?
yes, definitely as a middle child. I believe my brother and sister have always had my back, and I will
Okay.
say that since we were kids and to this day. And, as we get older and we just continue to get closer and stronger. But I will say it more in the well, first off, my older sister, yes, always defended me. I was kind of like her little shadow.
Okay.
I admired her, I looked up to her, and always kind of followed her around with her friends to her, when she started working jobs, I would get a job at the same place. And I will say that, especially because I know a lot of people now with girls, sometimes sisters don't want that. It's like, oh, you're so annoying. You're my little sister. Leave
Right.
me alone. Like my sister was never like that. She was always very proud that, that's my sister and always, had and included me and had my back type of thing. I honestly felt more sad for our brother because he was the only boy and he was younger, and it was kind of like me and my sister were, growing up, we're kind of always together playing and doing things. And we joke as adults now, like I would play Barbies with my sister and then I would feel bad for my brother that he had no one to play with, so I would then go and play like He-Man and GI Joe with him, just to almost like I
Yeah.
felt bad. So I feel
Yeah.
like as the middle child, but it's interesting because now that plays into that empathetic and that compassionate piece, which I didn't think about as a kid. It was
Right.
always like I felt bad. So I always tried to like make him feel connected as well. So I would go up with my play with my sister and then go down as far as with my brother. So always trying to it's funny trying to make everybody happy type of thing, right? That people almost
Yeah.
people pleasing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's always an interesting component, especially for people who deal with narcissistic experiences later in life, that
Yes.
shows earlier in life as that pleasing
Yes.
component, wanting to make sure that people are okay with you and making sure
Yes.
they are happy or they feel good, that kind of a thing. When
Absolutely.
in reality, you're the one who's taking all the brunt of a lot of things.
Absolutely. It's a
Earlier.
coping mechanism for sure.
Yeah,
People pleasing, perfectionism, the codependency, those are all coping mechanisms, which, I try to find humor when I can, but I joke about that now that I'm a recovering, people pleaser or a recovering codependent, a recovering perfectionist, because all of those things, they're definitely coping mechanisms and strategies that as a
yeah,
kid that just it unravels subconsciously. You're not aware of that, you know. But
right.
speaking to that piece, and that's why I say I want to preface with that both my parents were very loving and had good hearts and generous in so many ways to us and to a lot of people. They were, the people that anybody needed something, they knew that my parents would give the shirt off their back type of thing. But there are traces of that narcissism in my own family, and it definitely was on my dad's side. And so there were a lot of times as kids that, his anger or something would show or just would snap and be mean or say something hurtful with his words. And I think in that point, the three of us bonded together like, oh, of course, like I remember situations where he wasn't, my dad wasn't maybe nice to my brother or to my sister or to me. And we
Yeah,
definitely would try to like, support each other, just cheer each other up. It's okay.
yeah,
Don't worry, like that kind of thing, like silly things. Like, if, my brother didn't want to eat certain something and he was getting, yelled at because of it, I would eat it for him just so that he could be done, like that kind of a
yeah,
thing. And again, they can be small things, but there were definitely traces of that. And that leads into my story of my life. But you don't know any of those things growing up. And I speak to this all the time that everybody knows their childhood and they think that's what is normal, right? And
yeah,
it honestly, it's not, I feel, until you get older where you just kind of get out in the world and you see other families and the dynamics and how other couples, families, children operate. And then you start to like reflect and think, wow, that's really different from how I was brought up. And then you start to like
yeah,
piece things together, like what's kind of healthy or not. And so I do think it's a process for sure.
yeah. The reason I asked the question about the sensitivity is always because that's how I was as a kid.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to connect with a guest or even people in general from that perspective to find out, or if I'm talking to them long enough, I can already pick up
Yeah.
that is the case.
Yeah,
Um, but
absolutely.
yeah, I was very sensitive as a kid. I would cry, even if somebody just raised their voice.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I would cry.
absolutely,
And then
absolutely.
the other side of that is I saw spirits as a kid.
Mhm.
So I was experiencing something that everybody around me wasn't experiencing.
And you don't know
Um,
what to do with that.
exactly. So I always kept that to myself, didn't share it with anybody, didn't say anything about it until later in
Okay,
life that I started
okay,
admitting it once I realized what it was.
sure. Well, I was gonna say as a kid, I don't know, did you ever tell someone and was it, like, shut down and then you learned that I shouldn't tell people this or
No,
no?
I never
Yeah,
said anything to begin with because I just thought it um, wouldn't be accepted, number
right,
1,
right.
and number 2, it wouldn't be understood. I just
Mhm.
always got that sense.
Intuitively, yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
So, I just kept it to myself.
Do you know what's interesting, Rich, is that I think that when those types of things happen, when you're sensitive and you're a child, and whether you see things, hear things, right? You intuitively know, okay, yeah, this isn't really socially accepted. And then that's why I think, I don't know, I'm assuming now, but feeling into that you were a very quiet child
Oh, yeah.
because I find and I feel that it's like it's almost like you go within, you kinda shut out, like, "Okay, this isn't okay by everyone else around me, so I'm just gonna kinda with not withdraw, but go within yourself." And those
Yeah,
are like the book readers and and they can be portrayed again. See, this is what the wording and that kids grow up with. "Oh, well, they're shy," or "They're quiet," or "Oh, they're standoffish," right? And all these labels are then put on you, but when in reality, it's that you're sensitive to everything around you, people,
Yeah.
places, events, feelings, everything, and you don't know how to manage it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Because even from the perspective of, being quiet as a kid, people would comment, "Oh, you're so well behaved,"
Mm.
and it was like, okay, I get I get that, but
Right.
I'm just trying not to make waves, not to
Exactly.
draw attention to myself, all of those kind of things. And then
Yes.
2, you get that reinforced from your parents of be good, don't
Yep.
act up, you gotta be quiet here or in this
Yes.
environment, stay close to us,
Yes.
all of those types of things.
Yes.
So you get
Absolutely.
that perspective of you've got to be this way and people are recognizing this way, so it has to continue, can't break out of that shell.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's interesting about the not making waves. And you're right. It's kind of like flying under the radar. And that, again, in my world, with if there is any toxicity at home, that is the way to survive. That is absolutely the way to survive. Like I'm not understood. Really, at the end of the day, it's not feeling seen for
yes,
who you actually are. And so you learn, well, I'm just going to stay quiet, fly under the radar, don't cause any waves, and then that's how I'll be okay. But the problem there, Rich, is that it follows you into adulthood, right? Into any
yeah,
new, friendships, relationships, work environments, right? Because,
yeah,
and that's where I see that at an older age, whether you're willing to or not, people start to like dive into those things and say, huh, well, that's why I do things now, right? It's everything stems from childhood. We don't realize it, but everything really does.
yeah.
So that's very fascinating. That's very fascinating. And I also think, generationally, I speak to a lot to like generational patterns and generational trauma and generational
Oh, yeah,
healing, all of that. But that our parents' generation was like you said, like just be a good boy, be a good girl, be quiet, almost like only speak when spoken to type of thing. No
yeah,
explanation. I talk about this a lot with my own kids. Like there was no explanation. They told you to do something and you just did it, right?
yeah,
And you didn't, if you dare to ask like why, it's like because I said so. That was my classic,
exactly.
no, that was my parents' classic answer, right? Because I
Yep,
said so. That doesn't really explain anything, but okay. Whereas today, and again, I think every generation evolves. And there's pros and cons, but I think today, and at least how I choose to mother and to parent is it's fine to explain to your children, well, I want you to do this because X, Y, and Z. If you have a problem with it, well, I'm sorry. I'm still at the end of the day, I always say, like, I have full veto power. I'm the mother, right? But I'm at least explaining to you what my thought process is and why. And that comes into play, that could be a whole other side note of, I don't know about you, Rich, but like growing up, it was like the don't ask, don't tell. Like when real things getting into like middle school, high school, right? Those are years that are very impressionable, very developmental. And now you're
yeah,
talking about things like drugs, alcohol, sex, all of those really important things that people can get into a lot of trouble with, right?
right.
And there was not one conversation about it with our parents. It was just like
Oh,
you
yeah,
figured it out, right? You just figured it out somehow, but at the end of the day, the other kids don't know either. So you're just trying to like make your course. Whereas today's times, I do feel like parents, and I know I am myself, like we have the uncomfortable talks. They're not what might not be fun, right? Talking about these things, but I
yeah,
feel they're very necessary. And so I would rather, like, I choose to have those uncomfortable talks with my children because I want to set them up for success in any way that I can. Are they going to listen to me all the time? Are they going to make mistakes? Of course, right? But at
yeah.
least they're getting it from someone older, wiser, who's been there type rather than just asking their friends type of thing. So I find that's a very big difference in the older generation and our generation as well.
Yeah, for sure. I always applaud that when I hear it come from a parent that they're more open with their kids about those types of conversations because you're absolutely right. We weren't given that information. It was like, you just don't do this, and there's
Mhm.
no reason
Right.
behind it to
Right.
explain why, or it wasn't even talked about at all.
At
It was
all.
just something you had to figure out on your own just
Right.
because of what you were experiencing in the world.
But I look at it in like a bigger picture. It's almost, a lot of things growing up in childhood and then it stemmed definitely into relationships after for me. It's like something would happen and then things get swept under the carpet, right? That's the
Yeah.
analogy. Like, so we didn't talk, there was a big fight or a big blowout, and then we didn't talk about it, right? We didn't resolve anything. We didn't make amends. We didn't talk about our feelings. We didn't do any of those things. It was just swept under the carpet. And now you're holding on to those things, whether, and you keep going, continue on, but you're still holding on to those things. And then I can speak from the physical side of that as a massage therapist. Like, our bodies hold on to repressed
Oh,
emotions
yeah.
in so many different ways, in our muscles, in our tissues, in our chakras, our energy systems. So again, when that happens not once, it's repeated, right? You're just constantly, things happen, you don't talk about it, you don't talk about it, you don't talk about it. It adds up. It's like then suddenly there's this mountain under the carpet, right? That
Yeah.
none of it has been talked about, and then that's where a lot of times things just explode. And on the spiritual side, I look at it that it's the difference between living in the light and living in the dark, right? We
Yes.
all have a shadow side. We all have things, parts of us, things, that we maybe want to hide. But when you bring light to a situation, again, it's uncomfortable and nobody really wants to have those difficult conversations. But I'm, at least at this point in my life, of the nature, I'd rather have those uncomfortable conversations to get things out, not hold it in our bodies, and
Right.
be real and like authentic with each other. But at least at this point, I mean, I have many, many people around me, family, friends, clients. Some people choose to and some people don't. And that's where our free will comes in, and that's okay. But at
Right.
some point, it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Body always keeps the score, right?
That's one of my favorite books. Absolutely. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Going to the Catholic school in elementary, did you also transition into middle school in the Catholic private
Mm-mm.
school, or did you go to a different school at that point?
So Catholic school worked a little bit different, where I guess normal elementary, it's like kindergarten to fifth grade, and then you
Yeah.
go six, seven, and eight to middle school and then high school. At
Right.
least I'm pretty sure it still works that way, but most Catholic schools, it's kindergarten to eighth grade. So
Okay.
it's elementary and middle school all together, and then you go to high school. Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to public school up until fourth grade. And then fourth grade, my parents pulled me out and put me into a private Christian school.
Okay.
And that went all the way through 12th grade. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
it was all combined K through 12. So
Okay. Wow.
we had
That's
some students in the same class that were older, some that were younger, weren't the
interesting.
same age. It was a
That's
bit
interesting.
strange in terms
Ah.
of what's out there today.
It's more of like a Montessori kind of approach
Yes.
with different
Yeah,
different
probably.
ages of kids that help the younger kids type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly.
But it's interesting. I will share just, again, your parents make decisions that obviously affect you and your upbringing. And then I do the same as a parent, and you just pray that you're doing the best that you can. I am very grateful for my Catholic education. I definitely am. However, I will say that it was definitely very jaded, maybe not the right word, but just coveted in the sense that it was very sheltered, right? We
Yes.
had very small classes. Everyone around me was middle class, white. There was no diversity. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until I went to high school, and I did go to a Catholic high school, but that was the first time ever that I'd been in a class with people of different races, cultures. There even were
Mhm.
some different religions, even though it was a Catholic high school. Wasn't
Okay.
until college that it was like, "Oh, wow, there's tons of religions and races and and I just remember, like, looking around me like, "Wow, like, this is completely new," because up until 8th grade, I felt very sheltered, again, not knowing, that's all you know, that
Right.
everybody is middle class, white, pretty much Italian, Catholic, like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
just kinda the thought. So I do remember that being very, surprising to me. Whereas I feel like I took the opposite approach where for my kids, they've been in public school their whole lives. And I feel like there's pros and cons to both, but public school has a lot more diversity. I think it's a broader picture of the world, right? Of
Yeah,
different
yeah,
cultures, races, religions, and I think they get just it's just more open-minded in that sense. And then of course there's a lot more, public schools are funded by the government. They have a lot more as far as classes and things that at a Catholic school we didn't. I always wanted to go to like
yeah,
a cooking class or a woodworking class, and we didn't even have that available type of thing.
yeah.
So there is more accessibility. So I don't know. It's very interesting because I feel like I'm watching my children have a very different childhood already than I had,
Yeah,
which is interesting. So, yeah, I don't know. I find that fascinating.
for sure. It's always that scenario of, oh, this is completely different than what I experienced.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
you transitioned into high school and now it's a completely larger and more open
Yeah.
world for you, how
Yes.
did that affect your sensitivity and your shyness at that point?
I feel like so I went to an all-girl Catholic high school,
Okay.
and compared to elementary school, it was bigger, but in the grand
Right.
scheme, it really wasn't very big. So to give you an idea, I had about 100 girls in my class. There was about 400 in the whole school,
Yeah.
whereas, like, my boys go to their high school has, like, 4,000 kids in it, you know? So again, everything is relative and everything is about your own perspective, but it felt so much bigger to me, right, coming from a
Yeah.
class of 15, right? Or
Yeah.
13, I think my 8th grade graduating class was. So I actually again, it was surprising, but I embraced it. I thought it was really cool, and I feel like it's funny, Rich, I look back a lot on, like, my formative years of, like, high school and into middle school, high school, college, and I really speak true of that. I think we are who we are, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so many things that I look back on now where I'm like, yeah, I've always been true to that. Like that's kind of who I am. So I'll give you an example and to answer your question. I think I just gravitated towards like the people that like fed my soul type of thing. So meaning
Yeah.
like I knew again, it was like this awareness that I was sensitive, but I didn't have this like, oh yeah, I'm different. It was like this underlying feeling, right?
Yep.
Um so when I went to high school, I was excited because I had all these new people, right, that I could, meet. And I feel like that's energy, which again wasn't even thinking about energy then, but it's like energetically I gravitated towards friends and girls that matched me, right? So even to
Right.
this day, I have friends that I still keep in touch with from high school that we just were on that same frequency and whether they were also very sensitive or we just connected. Um
Yeah.
and I find that and I speak to that a lot. Like throughout our whole lives, we'll meet a lot of people, right? And through
Yeah.
school and work. And now I think about this because I was always this way. I can tell when I meet someone new, and I can use you as an example, Rich. Like I've never met you before, right? Even when we
Right.
spoke on the phone and then today having our conversation, it's more of a feeling. It's like, yeah, this person like speaks the same language as me, but
Yeah.
also like kind of gets me. There's an energetic feeling of safety. I
Yep.
feel safe to talk to this person. Whereas the opposite can be, I meet people all the time and again, this doesn't come from judgment, but it's like I'll meet someone, I'm like, ooh, our energies do not match. Like that person's not
Yeah.
my cup of tea, or people can meet me and think the same thing as well.
Yeah.
Or you hear these stories. I'm sure it's happened in your lifetime when you meet someone and you're like instantly you feel connected. Like I feel like I've
Uh,
known you forever, right? But I
yeah.
just met you, right? And
Yep.
I have quite a few girlfriends, really dear friends to me in my life that I knew like it was instant from when I met them that
Yeah.
we were going to be friends because it's like we just operate at the same frequency. I don't know, that soul, it's more of a soul connection or a kindred
Yep.
spirit connection. So I think about that now because I'm so aware of the energy and the spiritual piece of it. But obviously I wasn't then, but
Yeah.
it was still the same. It was inside of me. Like it's like my soul knew, like this person's safe. They're good people. Like I can
Right.
be okay with them. And other people that just didn't really resonate with who I was, they weren't in my orbit.
Yeah. Once I got into high school and started working, the place that I worked at, there was some brother and sister scenarios that were going on there, and they went to Catholic schools as well.
Okay.
Um, the girls went to all girls Catholic schools, and the brothers went to all boys Catholic schools.
Okay.
Once you got to high school and you experienced that, okay, this is a different world, but it's still all girls. Did you
Mhm.
guys have like a brother school that you would have
Yes.
events and different things take place?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our cheerleaders cheered for their football team, and we had events and dances and things like that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So it's the same situation. Once you started experiencing the opportunity to be around boys, because
Mhm.
now you've gone through that period of hormone changes,
Right.
different things are taking place, interests are becoming different
Sure.
based off of that as well. How did you manage to navigate that scenario? Now I see, and these boys, now I can talk to them a lot
Mhm.
easier because we're connected in the fact that it's a brother school, sister school type
Right.
scenario. And we're,
Right. Interesting. Well, what's coming to me is that I actually really loved going to an all-girls school, which even at the time I had friends that went to public high schools and they were like, "How do you go to a Catholic high school?" Several things. One, we wore uniforms. I didn't have to think about what I was going to wear, right? But I actually it's so funny. Wow, you're bringing something out, Rich, that I've never actually like thought about, which I love, and it's like putting another piece in the puzzle. I
yep,
loved being in class all day long. We switched classes. There was a safety component. I loved it then, and I still like said I always loved my high school and going to school there because it was like you'd be in class and you want to raise your hand and participate, and you never had to feel like some boy's gonna make fun of me and they're gonna think I'm
right.
stupid or they're gonna like whatever talk about the shirt that I'm wearing. Right? We were all
Yeah,
wearing the same things. There was an emotional safety piece, and wow, you are literally connecting something for me because I feel more bonded to my high school than elementary or college even.
yeah,
But I think it was because there was that safety piece. So all day it was very comfortable and you didn't really, and of course, again, there were, the mean girls. There was that. Okay. There was,
yeah,
but there was a majority were like just friendly and like, I don't know. And it was Catholic. There were nuns. Like you had the Catholic values, right? Of trying to be good,
yeah,
Christian like and loving and that kind of thing. So it
yeah.
resonated with me. And then when we did events and things with our brother's school, yeah, that opened up a whole other component because then of course, high school, right? You've got the girls that like different boys and oh, I liked him first and like all of
Mhm.
that stuff. So I had a few boyfriends in high school. So you're going to have some of that, but I think the same thing with same versus boys versus girls that the boyfriends that I had, I just feel like we were energetically connected and every
Okay,
relationship, I believe every relationship, a friendship or a romantic relationship is a learning experience. It really
right.
is. And I got my heart broken. I broke somebody else's heart. Like it's like that kind of thing, right? But those are all just yeah, the experiences I think that we need to learn and grow. And yeah,
Yeah.
you're bringing up some interesting things that I haven't really thought about in a very long time, right? Which is really
Uh,
funny. Wow.
with
Wow.
that option as well of you mentioned this earlier about working at some of your dad's places of business. Did that type of environment start to expand the realization of what was taking place in the world as well? Of now having a job, having some responsibility, and seeing people come in of, different races, different religions, different cultures, all that type of stuff, just
Yeah.
because you're serving.
Sure. Well, in addition to working at my dad's pizza places, during high school, I had multiple jobs.
Okay.
And I don't know, I always loved the diversity. I worked as a hostess somewhere. I worked as a waitress somewhere. I worked at the pizza places. I worked at a bagel shop. Like I worked several different jobs. I don't know. I've always been a hard worker type of thing. In high school, when you have a car, you finally have some independence. You want some money to go. I was very social. I loved going out with my friends. I loved buying
Okay.
clothes, like that kind of stuff. So I think the jobs fueled all of that. So
Yep.
I worked in many different environments, and yes, definitely a service oriented. You're dealing with customers and all kinds, and people who right different personalities. People get angry because they're waiting online, or like that kind of stuff. So I think it definitely opened up. Yeah, for sure. Recognizing like it's interesting you were saying like that you would get upset if someone raised their voice. Yes, like I started to recognize like if somebody was angry about something, like something took too long or they waited too long in the line or they, wanted their money back or refund, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was like again, I didn't realize that it didn't affect everyone the same way, but it affected
Right.
me. And even it's so funny the things that you're bringing up inside I worked at one of my jobs, and I won't say which, but at one of my jobs, it came to light there were a lot of other high school kids that worked there, and it
Okay.
came to light that not to the boss, but that I had found out that one of the people that worked there was stealing money from the
Right.
register, from the cash register.
Right.
And I remember that like hurt me deeply. Like it wasn't my business, right? It wasn't,
Yeah.
right? But yet, I don't know, I was so disappointed in the person, number 1,
Yeah.
right? I then was torn with now I know this information. Do I tell the boss, right? Because that's kind of the right thing to do, right? But then
Yeah.
it's like you're in high school. If you're snitch and you tell, then they're not right. They're gonna be
Yeah.
angry at me, you know. So at the end of the day, I didn't say anything, but I remember that really bothered me. And even just thinking back now about that, it's like, well, why? Because it's not doing what's kind or right. And I live by that at this, and so that's so interesting. I guess I never realized like why it hurt me so much. And even as I'm speaking to you, Rich, like other examples in my like 20s is like coming into my mind of things that other people were doing. It wasn't even something that I was doing, but I was just witness to it. And it
Yeah.
was so deeply upsetting. Another example I'll give in one of my jobs after I graduated college was I found out, and again, I don't know, just maybe energetically, like I always like seem to, even to this day, like I find out things like I'm not asking for this information. I'm almost like, don't even tell me this information, but somehow I know it, right? And I
Yeah.
found out that there was someone having an affair, the job that I worked at, where this, person had like a wife and child at home. And then I found out that that was basically cheating on his wife and was having an affair with someone that I worked with. And I was like, to the point, Rich, I'm not joking. I was like crying. Like I came home crying from work and I was in my 20s
Yeah.
thinking, like, that is just so wrong. Like, and it wasn't anything about me, but it was just feeling that from somebody else. So I think
Yeah.
as I'm talking to you, and I love this, it's kind of like pulling things out.
Yeah.
Again, I say looking back, I'm like, oh, I really wasn't privy to all the things, because I wasn't aware. But the more and more I think about it, and the more like examples I could pull easily that, yeah, there were many times that I was very sensitive. Like someone else could just say, oh, whatever, it's not your life. It's not about you. Don't worry about it. Like, but I felt like distraught and I also felt very, called to say something, which I ended up doing. Like basically, like
Okay.
I'm not the judge, but just to say to this person, like, that's not okay. And I know, and if I know, somebody else might know, like that kind of thing. Like, and
Right.
that speaks to the piece of me that really cares about like justice and kindness and treating people with respect and that
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
It's that soul integrity that's
Yes.
ingrained in you already.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And yeah, that's so funny. And these are the things that, I draw upon. And I don't know if this is even this as I speak to you. I don't know if other parents do this, but like I draw upon my own experiences in my life and my childhood and growing up, and I
Yeah.
use those as examples to my own children. I have 3 boys and they're, very impressionable years. They're in high school and college, and
Yeah.
those are really very impressionable years. And I will draw on experiences from my own life to try to help them. And what's coming to me is that, yes, in high school, I had a boyfriend that cheated on me. And
Mm.
it was beyond devastating, beyond
Right.
devastating. And to be honest, Rich, even at this point in my life, I feel like that's the ultimate betrayal of trust, right? If you're with
Yeah.
somebody and they cheat on you. And so I've said this to my boys because now my boys are in high school and they talk about their friends and who is in a relationship and who cheated on who and are they going to take them back and that kind of thing. And I remember what that felt like. And it was just horrible because what I believe and what I said to even my kids was that, again, it is that integrity piece. Like if you're with someone and you're in a relationship and you feel like you don't want to be in that relationship anymore, then have the integrity and the decency to have the difficult conversation and say, I don't think this is working. I want to break up. And then you do whatever you want to do and moving on to another relationship. But that cheating piece, that betrayal of trust, that for me has always been a very, very hard pill to swallow. And not just in romantic relationships. That could be in friendships. You can be betrayed by
Yeah.
friends, right? Of your trust. And those are the things that I feel because I'm sensitive have cut me so deeply to my core.
Right.
Whereas maybe it hurts other people, but not to that intensity. And I don't know if you agree with that.
No, I completely agree with it. And I'll share something here. Audience is going to think I'm crazy. Um, but
I don't. I've heard it all.
what that again, that's why I'm willing to share this.
Yes.
Um, the I did a healing session one time, and it was around betrayal and
Okay.
those scenarios where you think you're in a integral relationship and you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, all that kind of stuff. And the lady that I work with, her name's Marilyn Edwards. She's in St. Augustine, Florida. Phenomenal lady, and a wild story about her life as well. She's The very first episode that I did with the podcast was with her, but
Okay.
she was working with me, and we were trying to narrow in on where that sense of betrayal originated from. And so she got me to just focus in, calm myself, be quiet, listen. And I saw this flash of standing in this white marble hall,
Okay.
and I could see all of these what seemed like brothers, for lack of
Mhm.
better terminology, seemed like brothers were running past and were trying to escape and get away from the environment that we were in.
Mhm.
And when I
Okay.
say felt like brothers, it was just that soul knowingness component that you have intuitively.
Mhm.
And what I realized in that moment is that I was witnessing the split of heaven.
Oh,
So
wow.
it
Wow.
was that instance of Lucifer revolting
Okay.
and
Mm.
taking people with him against
Hmm.
everything that we had been building and working at and up to
Wow.
that point. And when I
Wow.
realized it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this takes my soul understanding into a completely different direction as well.
Wow. Wow.
Interesting that I'm having throat uh,
Yes, speaking,
blockage
right?
taking, right? Yeah.
Communication, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
but
So
yeah,
what did you do with that once you had that experience?
what I realized was the only thing that I could do with that is as much as I had that feeling of hurt and pain and sorrow that would well
Mhm,
up, as you just
mhm.
described, I could only control the way that I responded to it.
Yes,
I
yes,
couldn't change what was taking place, couldn't change them, couldn't
yes,
change their mindset. But what I could do was realize how was going to respond,
yes,
realize that it wasn't against me specifically, even
right.
though it felt like it was
Yes,
because we were this group.
sure.
But that allowed me to look at those instances of betrayal that
Mhm.
had taken place over the course of life this time around, look at them from a completely different point of view.
Yes,
Fact that
yes.
what I could do was realize there was something going on in that other person. It wasn't about me.
Yeah.
It was about
Mhm.
them. So
Right.
the way that I respond is the only thing that I have control of, really.
Yes,
And so if I can
absolutely.
recognize that, then I can respond in a different way. I don't
Right.
have to take that as an internal hurt,
Yes,
even though
yes.
that's what wants to take place.
Sure, and it felt that
But
way.
I
Right.
can realize it's not about me. All
Yes.
I can do is just continue on in my own integrity and move
Yes.
forward in that type of direction.
Wow, wow. Well, first off, Rich, I just want to say like thank you for sharing that. And it's just a beautiful example of what I say and preach all the time that, when someone allows themselves to be vulnerable, it inspires other people to do the same. So
Right.
I appreciate you sharing that very much. And at the same time, what it felt like to me was, yeah, just good versus
Right.
evil, light versus dark, which comes into play in my world and my work in many, many ways. And I agree 1,000% with you on that we can feel that hurt of something that's happening to someone else. Doesn't even, like you said, has nothing to do with you, but not to internalize it, right? To take it on and realize exactly we can only control how we respond. We can only control our language around it, our narrative around it, our words, our thoughts, our behaviors. So, um,
Yeah.
I agree with you so much. And I think that if you take that into any example in your life, right, whether it's personal or professional, to say, like, sadly in this world, right, people do a lot of awful, hurtful things, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's done directly to you, and sometimes it's an indirect hurt. Someone you love is suffering, is hurt by somebody else, right? It has nothing to do with you, but you still feel the pain, right? So
Right.
how
Right.
do you support that person in their pain without taking it on, and also recognizing and this is maybe more of a mindset that my kids joke and make fun of me, but like I always want to believe that love always prevails and
Yeah.
that good wins always over evil. And I know it sounds so like Marvel movie cliche, which is funny because one of my sons is a big Marvel fan, and when we
Okay.
talk about like energy things, I'm like, it's exactly like the Marvel movies, right? But it's like in those movies, right? You pray that like good at the end, good prevails and love prevails. And I know that I've been accused many times in my life, Rich, of being that like Pollyanna, unrealistic like view
Yeah.
of life. But it's like, no, that's what I choose to believe. I choose to believe and focus on the good in the world because there is a lot of good in the world. Is there a lot of hate and anger and awfulness? Absolutely. But that's not what I
Right.
want to focus on. I want to believe in the good. I want to be the good. I want to hopefully set the example and inspire other people to lean into that space instead of the dark side.
For sure. As you're getting towards the end of high school, starting to think about, all right, what's gonna happen once this is all over? What
Right.
am I gonna do? Are you already at that point starting to think about college and that you want to go off to college, or was it presented as no, you need to go to college?
Yeah, it was presented, that's just what
Okay.
you're doing. Yes, for sure, for sure, which I wanted to, that wasn't an issue. It was more of didn't get to go to the college that I really wanted to go. I
Okay.
got accepted into several colleges, but basically my parents were like, "You got the biggest scholarship here, this is where you're going," and that's when I ended up at Iona,
Gotcha.
but if it was my choice, I would have gone elsewhere. And it's funny because I have my twins are in that space of, they're high school seniors right now, and we've been doing the whole college search all that times 2, which has been interesting.
Right.
But I, share on my own experiences, shared that story that at the end of the day, I was very upset and really angry at my parents, to be honest, that I didn't get to go where the school that I wanted to go to. And also I didn't get to go away. I commuted and I felt like I
Okay.
didn't get the true college experience that everybody
Right.
else got, right? At least by my perspective. And this is another great example, Rich, of like things that we look back on in our lives. I didn't think about it at the time, but I think about it now. I was what, 18 years old, right? Going off to college. And I remember going to the orientation and I remember being mad and angry and bitter and all those things, right? This isn't where I want
Yeah.
to go, blah, blah, blah. But I also recognize it's like something inside of me recognize if I go in with this mindset and keep this mindset, I'm going to have 4 miserable years here and it's not going to be
Right.
fun.
Yeah.
Or somehow, again, this was not conscious, but now I can look back. Or do I change my mindset and say, you know what? Okay, again, rewrite the story. I'm not happy. This isn't where I wanted to go, and that
Right.
stinks. But this is where I'm going to be. So I might as well make the best of it. And I might as well try to join things and meet people and try to make the best experience of it that I can, which is what I did. And I feel like that was a huge example in my own life and that I share with my children that sometimes in life we don't get what we want, right? And we get
Yeah.
handed other things and you can either cry about it. Yes, you're going to, and you can cry about it. You have your pity party, right? But since then, so many other things have happened in my life that I had no control over and I was upset about. But you do have a choice. And I'm a big believer that whatever happens to you, you have a choice of how, like you said, how you respond to it. So
Yeah.
you can respond and be angry and bitter and hold on to that forever and just be mad about it. Or you can respond and say, okay, yeah, like recognize the situation. This isn't what I wanted and this stinks and I'm hurt and I'm upset, but I'm going to make the best of it. And that's what I did. And I can look back and say, if I didn't go to that school, I wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't have had the children that I have, like all of that kind of stuff, right? I wouldn't have had so a
Yeah.
lot of the friends that I still have. So I believe that we all have a divine path. We do have free will, of course, along the way. But at the end of the day, if you didn't, I would of course correct it. I went to that school, I wasn't happy about it, but that led me somewhere else that my
Right.
soul needed type of thing. Like if you believe in that, like what your soul contract and journey is, then I think it alleviates a lot of that stress and anger when things don't go our way.
For sure, for sure. What was the school that you wanted to go to, and what was the specific reason why you wanted to go there?
It was Fordham University in New York, in the Bronx, and I when I went to visit, I loved the campus. I thought it was so beautiful. I had several friends that were going there, right? Of
Yeah.
course, so that has a play. I wanted to dorm. I wanted to, I wanted, maybe I really just wanted that independence, right? I wanted
Yeah.
that peace. And I do remember thinking my older sister did go away for college, and I also felt resentful. Well, why did she get to go
Mm,
away and I didn't, right? That kind of a
yeah.
thing. And at the end of the day, I did go and visit my friends there several times, and I guess maybe I don't know. I remember feeling like I wasn't supposed to be here for whatever reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Taking business administration, was that potentially something that you were looking at because of your dad's businesses?
It's a good question, but no, actually, and I speak a lot about this again because the world that I live in right now, with my kids being in high school, like that's all for years we talked about, like, right? How do you pick your college? What do you want to study? Major? Like, I'm just so in it, and it's just funny because it brings back all of these things from my own high school into college years. So it's so fresh on the brain.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have any clue
Okay.
what I wanted to study. So I just felt like business was just very generic and like I just remember thinking, well, I'm good at math and like so I did minor in finance and I was like, I went, I learned marketing, finance, accounting, just kind of it was a an overall umbrella of things that I felt
Right.
like, okay, well this is something that I could use. But no, I had no clue. And that's what I tell my own children and their friends. It's okay. The thing is, at that point, nobody told me, like, it's okay
Yeah.
if you don't know what you want to do. It was like, nope, you got to pick your major, you got to pick your life, you got to pick your career for the rest of your life, right? I was like, I have
Right.
no idea what I want to do. And so I feel like again, that perspective is saying, look, does anyone really? Because you could go to college for something, and maybe some people do. My older sister is a perfect example of that. She went to culinary school. She's wanted to become a chef, and she's a chef to this day, and she loves it, and
Oh,
that's
wow.
that's her calling. But
Yeah.
I didn't have that same inside feeling of like this is what I want to do, and so some people it is that like linear course. And so
Right.
what I have said to my own children is that my professional career and course was like very very windy, like so it's like I started in business. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do, and I worked some jobs and things, but like I ended, and we'll get to, I know as far as what I do now, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a linear path, and that's okay because maybe that's what my journey was supposed to be. But I will say, Rich, that having a business background is a wonderful thing when you own your own business. And I never,
Yes.
never intended to own my own business. That wasn't even my intention. So
Right.
I do feel, and that's what I've told my kids too. Like, if you don't know what, okay, start with business. You could always switch, but a business degree will never do you wrong, type of thing.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That is for sure. I mean, I know as an artist and as a creative person, I didn't complete college because I was failing everything but my art classes.
Because you probably didn't like, you loved your art classes. Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
But also too, even if you go to school just specifically for art, they don't teach you the business of being an artist. They
Sure. You're
teach you how
right.
to be proficient in the different techniques and then,
Oh,
the
that's
fact that you
interesting.
can go out and get a job. But if you decide you're going to be an independent artist or an independent designer, they don't teach you any of that thing.
That's fair. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So,
So the business side component of that could be very helpful.
yeah, exactly. It'd be very much helpful. Just trying to figure out how to price the value of what you're creating.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is something that you just have to figure out trial and error,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
because there's no set standard essentially, for
Yeah.
what that is, because it's
That's
all based
interesting.
on someone else's perception of its value.
Exactly. Exactly. That's fair. And then plus on top of that, what you feel your own worth of your work is. And yeah, that could be two very different things. You're right.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Um, as you're at college, you mentioned that you met your husband there as well. Was that something that was early on, or was that towards the end of college?
It was early on, but actually what's you wanna laugh about, sometimes how God and the universe works. I
Mm,
met him in college, but we weren't at the same college. So where
okay.
he went was actually Fordham, which was the school that I wanted to
Oh,
go to,
yeah.
right? But we ended up meeting through a mutual friend. So someone I met at Iona then got me a job, a part-time job during school, and then I met him there. So I always and it's something I always think about. That's really interesting. If I actually did go to the school that I wanted to, would we have met? Right? So that is really funny. Yeah. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
earlier on. end of freshman year, I feel like. Yeah.
Okay. And once you guys did meet, was it kind of like an instant connection, or was it something that needed to build up and
We
uh
were we were friends first because we both were in relationships. We both he had a
okay,
girlfriend, I had a boyfriend, so we
gotcha.
were friends with the mutual friend that was my friend from my college. So, which was, but there was that instant like I really liked to be around him. Like I liked
Yeah.
just I had a lot of fun and laughs and that kind of thing. Like, again, when you
Yep.
meet people, you're like, "Oh, this is a person I want to spend more time with," type of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. As you're ending college
Mhm.
and about to step into the working world
Yeah.
as a full-time thing versus the part-time
Right.
scenarios while you're going to school and everything.
Right.
How did you feel about that in terms of, was there a lot of apprehension, or based on your work experience up to that point, had you built up enough confidence to be able to potentially step into something and dive right in working for somebody else?
Yeah, I don't well, I think there was the normal apprehension of you've been in school your whole life, right? And now you're
Yeah,
21, 22 years old and now, right, going out into the real world, it's that apprehension of like it's a major life transition of I've gone school is familiar, studying, taking tests, like that's very
right,
familiar. And now and I worked for like I said many years through high school and college, so I wasn't afraid to like work. I was actually excited to, again, have a full-time job and salary type of thing, but it was just the more of like, um, life is completely different. Like it's just and it's funny because I think for a sensitive person, and I don't know if you feel this way, Rich, but again, looking back and even now going forward, I think life naturally has many transitions, right?
yes,
And people, human nature in general, people don't like change, right? And
yeah,
even if, and I talk about this now, even if it's a good change, there's bad change and there's good change, right? But either way, it's still change because why? It's the fear of the unknown. And as humans, we fear that, right? We don't know what
yeah,
it's going to look like. What is my life going to be like? How is this going to work? How is that going to work? So, I do feel at this point that if you are sensitive, you're a highly sensitive person, if you're an empath, a creative, I think those transitions hit you in a much deeper way. And I don't know if you
yeah,
agree with that.
absolutely. But and especially from the perspective of my scenario of being a Capricorn who is right in the middle of the Capricorn season. At my
Okay.
birthday's at the end of December, so I'm
Okay.
smack dab in the middle, and have all of the Capricorn characteristics. I don't like change much at
Okay.
all. I like
Okay.
things to. I like to know what's in front of me, so I
Yes,
can at least
exactly.
navigate the path a little bit
Yes.
easier. Which is, that's been part of my journey, anyways, is to
Sure.
not focus on that, to just
Yes.
allow things to take place. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
more the fish side of the Capricorn, moving with the
Okay.
water and the
Oh,
flow.
I like that. I like that. Going
Yeah,
with the flow of life type of thing, for
right,
sure.
right.
For sure. Well, I feel now, again, I didn't feel this way most of my life, but I feel for myself, and again, I always practice what I preach that we don't need to see 20 steps ahead of us. We just need
Yeah,
to see maybe 3 steps ahead, right? What is the next right step? What is the next right thing to do in your world? Because we're not meant to. We couldn't handle knowing like more of that journey. And that's where I think it really leans into your faith and trust of that whatever is being divinely set up for you, whether we can see it or not, having that trust in your journey, which I think for me, it diffuses a lot of the anxiety that I used to have. I have struggled with anxiety for many years. I didn't even know it was anxiety. I just thought that
mhm,
everybody lived that way, right? But
yeah,
again, being sensitive and not being able to manage or cope or understand things, it manifested in anxiety. And I think for me in my own journey, my spiritual journey specifically, is that faith piece, that trust in, and I say this to clients all the time, whatever it is you believe in, whether it's God, the universe, right?
yeah.
It's having trust in the greater power in your life that we do have a say. We of course we do, but our soul does have a journey and have a mission and a contract. And if you believe into that, then that's where you take those intuitive steps towards it, type of thing.
That first job that you landed after college,
Mhm.
with your degree in hand, was it something that was of interest to you, or was it something of, okay, it's just opportunity to start making a paycheck?
It interested me. So my first job out of college, it was a financial services company,
Okay.
and I was basically it was sales though, and I think I didn't realize how salesy it was. I had to do all of the training and get my like whatever Series 6 and 63. So I learned about insurance and mutual funds and all those things, and that interested me. I found it interesting, but the sales piece was not my cup of tea by any
Yeah.
means. And it's funny because that experience, I was there, I don't know, over a year. I realized this is not who I am. And I joke about it because it was like, and I'm still this way, even owning my own business now. I'm
Right.
not that salesy person. I'm not the cutthroat. That's just not who I am. So I would
Yeah.
like lay out, oh, like for your financial future, I think that you should do X, Y, and Z. And people would say, oh, yeah, I'll think about it. I'm like, okay, pack it up and then go. Whereas
Yeah.
like that's just who I am. And it's funny because I can think back to those experiences now. I'm never going to force anything down somebody's throat. I'm never going to say you need to do this or you should do this. And so I speak to that in my business now. It's like I joke that I feel like I'm more of a gardener. Like I like to plant seeds. I
Okay.
like to
Yeah.
educate. I like to, like sprinkle in some suggestions to people, but then and I will say like I'm never like that happens a lot where people will come for massage and then they're like, "Oh, Deanna, you're a Reiki master. Like, what's Reiki?" And I'm like, "It's one of the things I love to talk about most on this earth about energy and healing." And so I'll explain a little bit, but then I'll say, if that's something that you're open to, please let me know. We could absolutely do a session, but I'm never going to like be like, "Yep, absolutely, you need to book a session, and that's what you need." And like that's just not who I am. So I look back
Right.
on that very first job that was very sales oriented, and I think about like I didn't do very well there, Rich, because it wasn't aligned with who I am. But I will
Right.
say that I made some wonderful friends who I am still friends with today, and our families and our kids are friends. And I do believe that every job, every relationship, every friendship, there's something in it for you. And whether that is a learning experience, a skill that you need to learn, a
Yeah.
person that you need to connect with, I
Yeah.
believe that wholeheartedly. So I'm grateful for that experience regardless.
All right. How about the next job after that of realizing I'm not really into the sales component
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think I want to move into something different? Where's the next step take you?
So the next step took me I stayed within financial services, but
Okay.
I recognized I was happier more on the back office side of it, meaning I got a job actually it was in New York City and I was supporting the financial planners that were out in the field. So basically,
Okay.
like that was me at the initiation, right? But instead, they would call our team and say, "Hey, I've got a client. They have, whatever they need this amount for retirement, blah, blah, blah." And I would help advise them. So it was like advising the people who were actually the salespeople. And I liked that a lot better because I was able to use the knowledge that I had, but it wasn't me on the line trying to make the sale type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an interesting component too, in terms of the trajectory of the job market. A lot of times, what you start out in doesn't always stay the same.
Right.
But if you're in something where you're learning what the main thing is that you ultimately end up supporting, that allows you to support it better because you understand what they have to go out and do,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I also think about this. And again, that's why I speak to it a lot with clients and then with family and my own children that I think any job, I hear this a lot. Sometimes people will say about a job or a relationship that it ended and it was a waste of time. And I don't
Yeah.
believe that. I don't believe that because I believe that any job or any relationship, again, there was some component that you needed to learn. There was a learning experience. So in jobs specifically, I feel like you hone in on what you don't like, what's not you, what doesn't feel right, and you hone in on the things that, "Oh, I really like this component of it," right? I really like that's and so now, actually, again, you're connecting some pieces for me even now, Rich. In that second job, I think I liked the advising, the educating. Right? It's actually more like coaching, right? Which is
Yeah.
what I do a lot in my personal and professional world today.
Yeah.
So I liked that piece of it, that I wasn't out on the front line type of thing. I was more help supporting and helping advise to people that were doing a job. So that's interesting.
For sure. The other avenue that I'm seeing is the correlation between your interest in service jobs in middle school and high school, and
Yes.
now stepping into another position that is serving the people who are going out to sell.
Yes. Yes. And that's so, I mean, that actually, Rich, has been, again, not conscious, but a common thread throughout, because that's what I say now. I have a heart of service. I have a heart
Right.
of service. I want to help people. And I know you can help people through many different jobs, right? But
Yeah.
I look at it now that I was given, God has given me certain gifts, and the sensitivities is plays into that huge of the gifts that I have of empathy and compassion to be able to help
Right.
people in their healing process. So I was given the gifts. I've learned that I had the gifts. I've learned how to use them, and now it comes from a place of wanting to serve, and I think that's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
From the intro that I gave, there's a component of your story that is based around narcissistic abuse. And that is essentially the way I look at it and have tried to relate to what that experience is. It's a continuous beating down of that sensitive soul.
Yes.
And it's a power thing, a power move. Um,
Absolutely.
Going through the working environment and having to experience those types of things, did you see those as building up, or was it a scenario that you entered into a space in your life where that became something that started to affect you and you may not have realized it immediately, but it was the thing that created this big shift and change in your life eventually?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I'm trying to think how to frame that. I can look back now and say that I have been involved in many narcissistic relationships, some
Okay.
personal, some friendships, some intimate relationships, and some professional relationships.
All right.
It's interesting looking back, and this is something I speak to a lot, that a lot of times bosses, like people in power, right? Because
Yeah.
narcissists, exactly, it's all about control and power. So there are many narcissists that are very successful, right? Very, either business oriented or they're very intelligent. So I've had many bosses that now I can see it, but at the time it was like, "Oh my gosh, they're just awful," or they just make me feel so small or so,
Yeah.
beaten down. Exactly. So, I guess at this point in my life, I draw on all of those experiences, the all of the relationships that I have been in, and again, every single one, the common thread there is that, exactly like you're saying, of that beating down of your soul. It's not of just, how do I try to explain it this way, especially from a romantic relationship? It's not just healing from like a broken heart. That alone is
Right.
is hurtful. It's
Yeah.
literally, and this is what I speak to in my group, is that you have a broken spirit. Okay. You have been
Yes.
beaten down slowly and subtly to your core. And so a lot of times with narcissism, the abuse is, it's psychological, it's emotional, it's mental, it can be physical, it can be sexual. There's many, components of it. But
Mhm.
it's, the thread is that it's slow and steady, right? It's not right
Right.
out of the gate, and there's many components of it. So a lot of times, not only myself, but many people that I've helped, you don't even realize it until you're already like way into the relationship, because what is presented at the beginning, and I can use an example of, a boss or a friendship, like they seem like the best person, like the best thing since sliced bread type of thing. You're like, this
Yeah.
person's amazing, right? Wow, like they've got so much to offer, and they're so friendly, and they're so smart, and they're right. So you get sucked into, and that's the love bombing phase, and you get sucked into it, and you're like, this is fantastic, right? And then your guard is down because you think, yeah, that they have my best interests at heart, and they want me to be a part of their team, and they want me, right? And then it's this slow, very slow and subtle degradation from that point. They've got you in, right? Whether for the job, for the friendship, for the
Yeah.
romantic
Yeah.
relationship. And then it's the slow belittling, the beating down, the gaslighting, the making you feel less than, right? Because their superiority is always going to try to outshine you. And so by the time you actually, and this is what I speak to all the time about, like, red flags and signs of that narcissistic behavior, because many people get fooled all the time, and they
Right.
get into these relationships, and by the time you're already in it, now you're like, well, how the heck, if you notice it, one, that there is a problem, and then two, well, how do I get out of this? And I remember, it's funny because I had a job years ago when I first started in massage, that I had a job where the boss was just, yeah, again, didn't know it then. She was definitely a narcissist, but I loved the job. I loved the environment. I loved the clients. I loved the space that I was in. But the only thing that I didn't love was her, was this person, was her, because she was just
Yeah.
really degrading and just made you, it's that kind of thing. Like, we've all, I'm sure, experienced it, where you're with someone. Nobody wants to be around someone who makes them feel bad about themselves, right?
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite of trying to, like, lift someone up and encourage them, like, "Yeah, you're gonna do great in this job." It's more like, "Oh, you didn't do that? Oh, well, I guess you'll," whatever it is, all those little comments. It's all those little, it's kinda like death by a thousand cuts type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I remember being at a point where I was like, "Do I leave this job?" Because I really like the environment, I like the people, I like the people I worked with, I liked, like, there were so many things that I liked, but I was really having an issue with the boss. And so I had a decision to make. Well, do I stay and basically, like, suck it up and, like, just deal with this person?
Yeah.
Or does it actually force me to leave that environment? And at the end, well, moved. So it made it an easy leave. But it was like, I think, and I know many people that have been in those situations where, do I leave the job because the environment is toxic because of this person? And I know so many people that have dealt with that.
Right.
Or do I stay and figure out how to navigate it and also stand up for yourself? Because if you
Right.
do stay in that environment, how do I basically protect my energy so that it doesn't make me feel less than?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Going into the work that you're doing versus the finance industry, it's a night and day type of scenario. At what point did you start to realize your gifts and your abilities were things that you needed to step into
Yeah.
versus staying in that business environment that is just going to continue to give you a safe, steady check?
That's a great question. This was a very pivotal point in my life, Rich. So I worked a few years in the more the corporate environment for business, and then I had I got married, and we actually had moved overseas with my ex husband's job, and I
Mm.
had, well, no, sorry, we did move overseas and then came back to New York, where I'm originally from, and then we had started to settle down, bought a house. I had my first child, then I had my twins. So I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom in that sense. Like, I knew whatever I did in my life work-wise, that I would put things on hold because I did value that. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until we went to
Right.
school,
Yeah.
and I really, really valued that aspect of, I don't judge anyone that is not, as far as moms, but for me, I felt like I wanted to be the one nurturing and raising my kids at home and being there. So I feel very blessed and I'm very grateful, and I always will be, to my ex-husband, that I was able to do that because of his job. Um,
Yeah.
so we then moved back overseas with my children and with my ex-husband for his job. And at that point, we knew we were moving back to New York, and my children were of elementary school age now at this point. So I knew that I was going to be going back to work. But I recognized immediately, I was like, I do not want to go back to a corporate environment, the finance. Like, I knew that it didn't honor my soul. And that's what
Yeah.
I said of those years when I did work, in that it wasn't that it was bad. It wasn't that, it was just that it wasn't me, right? It was okay, but it wasn't me. And I wanted something that, I think we all want a job or a career that we're passionate about, and not just going to a job, right? That type
Yeah.
of thing. And the whole idea of that, if do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life, type of thing. So
Yeah.
I was in a very soul searching space,
Okay.
recognizing I'm going to be going back to work, but I don't know what that is. And again, so now I was in my, what, late 30s, thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up type of thing, right? And I know a lot of people are in that again, like we live in a world where many people change and evolve and grow and switch careers and things very, very often. Whereas back in the day of our maybe parents, grandparents, it was like you picked a job and that's what you did for 50 years until
Yeah.
you got your pension and you died type of thing, right? And
Right.
it doesn't work that way anymore. So I was in a soul searching space and it was a very pivotal moment, and I know that it was like a God moment where I've always loved receiving massage, always, and I think that I've always seen the value and the benefit of it. When my kids were young, I would always ask for gift certificates for my birthday and Christmas, like, please just get me a massage because I loved receiving that, and I
Yeah.
always valued what it gave me on a physical but also emotional, mental level. And so I was getting a massage and I had this moment. It was a very defining moment where I thought I was in this beautiful spa with like trickling water and it was so zen. And I was like, I think I would really enjoy giving massage this and providing that feeling for like the way that I feel when I leave a massage. I would be able to provide that to other people. And I think that I would really enjoy that. And,
Okay.
that's where it came from. So, yes, it was completely out of left field in the sense that so night and day from what I was doing prior,
Okay.
right? Like corporate environment type thing versus, massage and more body work, health and wellness. But I followed that thread. I was like, okay, if this is what I'm feeling, then I'm going to look into it and research. So, started researching massage schools and then from there, I say it was almost like, and this is what I believe of anything for anyone in life. If something is meant for you, it's like the path opens up, right? Like
Right.
everything is
Yeah.
like suddenly it's easy. Like, oh
Mm.
wow, now I just happened to find a massage school that was 20 minutes from my home. Oh wow, I mean, I kid you not, they only had a full time program at the time, and I was like, I can't do full time. I have 3 kids that are in school. Like, I needed flexibility. I needed something that worked with my life. I thought about commuting to New York City for a massage school. I'm like, I can't do that. I have kids. I have my ex-husband traveled all the time. Like it was still a lot on me.
Yeah.
Um, and then suddenly, when we moved back and got settled, I went to visit the massage school that was close to our home. And magically, they started a brand new part time program, right? That literally, like timing wise, Rich, aligned with my kids in school. Like, so those are not coincidences. They're synchronicities that, again, even at that time, I was like, this is crazy. So I
Right.
do
Right.
feel in life in general that when you try to go down a path and things open up that way in that nature, it's meant for you. Follow it, right? Trust that. Whereas the
Yeah.
opposite to that is that you can make a decision, oh, I think I want to try this job, or I think I want to try this school or this relationship. And then it's like you feel like it's roadblock after roadblock, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
this feels really difficult. In my opinion, now I feel like those are God and the universe and the angels' way of saying, like, this is not the path you're meant to go down. Like, stop, and they're trying to block you, right? To redirect you. I truly believe like sometimes rejection can be redirection or God's protection type of thing. So
Yes.
everything just aligned like beautifully. And so I said I went to massage school. So now you also realize like my family and friends thought I was crazy. Like you said, like there's many
Right.
moments where they were like, Deanna, you have a business degree, you worked in finance and this and that. Like, what on earth are you doing? Right. And I remember there was a lot of pushback and resistance amongst, family and friends. And I just said, I'm going to trust here. Like this was a soul decision for sure. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but this is where I feel like I'm being guided. So I remember that first week in massage school, it was a huge leap of faith. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I pray I like this because let's see, there's a lot of time, money, and energy that's on the line, right? Um,
Yeah.
but honestly, Rich, I can say, and this is how I feel like that first week, it was almost like an immediate, yes, it was an immediate, like, almost like a sigh of relief. This is where I'm supposed to be. Like, these are my people. Like, this is, I don't know. It was this soul feeling of, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And there
Yeah.
was a lot of comfort and relief there. But I speak a lot about this that through that year, that program, it was like 13 months of massage school, was the first time that ever, and I was an adult, that I was exposed to meditation, breath work, and
Okay.
energy work, right? So just even in the schooling itself to become a massage therapist, it opened up my world, my personal world in such a way that I had never been exposed to. And that was not a coincidence either, because
Right.
in massage school, you get, obviously you're learning all the science, the anatomy and the kinesiology of the body. It's heavy on science, but
Yeah.
then you're exposed to many different modalities of massage. And again, that breath work, that being the theme of the whole school was being present, being
Mm,
present, meaning you're working on someone and providing them a service and a massage to try to help them, their body, their anxiety, their this, that. You shouldn't be thinking about your grocery shopping list or what you need to do when you go
right.
home, or right, like that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it was like ingrained about like being present. And I'll be honest with you, Rich, I think I really embraced that and took that to heart, not just when I'm working, but just in general, about being present in my life, being when I'm with my kids, being present, when I'm at my job, being present for that person, being present. If I'm on a phone call with someone, I'm present with that person. If I'm having dinner with someone, I'm not scrolling on my phone as I'm having dinner with somebody else, or I want to be present with you. And so
Yeah.
I can't even begin to explain how the journey that I took for to become a massage therapist opened up my world in so many ways, and my personal world. And honestly, I took immediately to, we didn't learn Reiki there, but we learned a form of energy work. And that was instant, that I was like, this is amazing. And I love it. And I want more of it. So I do feel that me making that pinnacle decision to go to massage school, that this is what the path that I wanted to go down, which was so different from what I was normally used to. It was my soul calling me. And I am so aware of that. So aware of that, not just for my own personal journey and my own satisfaction in the work that I do, but to help so many other people in the work that I do. And the only thing that I feel is gratitude. Right? It's been 10 years now since and I've been massaging, and then that led me into energy work and Reiki and coaching, and it's just been this beautiful evolution of
Yeah.
that all started with me listening to that calling. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The interesting component for me as I'm hearing this is, and I've seen this with others as well, but the fact that as we were both younger, we were put in religious schools,
Mhm.
yours being Catholic, mine being a fundamental Baptist environment. And you would think that would put you in touch with the spirituality, but yet you step into this other area of expertise and the spirituality component starts to open up and
That's
expand.
That's so
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I always find it very fascinating because I know from my perspective, my spiritual awakening came after many years of being in that environment. Even going off to college was in that environment. It was and college was worse than the high school component because it was even more stricter
Mhm.
and more dogmatic to an extent.
Sure.
Um, but my actual spiritual awakening came later in life after many years of not wanting any part of that any longer,
Yeah,
seeing so much hypocrisy take place in those environments
yeah.
and watch how it affected multiple people's lives because of
Sure,
that.
sure.
Um, and also too, having this feeling of I don't want to be here and I'm depressed. I'm have this anxiety. And I can remember having that as far back as 3 years
Wow,
old.
wow.
Um, didn't call it depression then because I didn't know what the word depression
Right.
was. I just knew I
Sure.
was sad.
Yeah.
Um, and my spiritual awakening came through a psychic medium
Okay.
who I knew she was psychic, and I had asked her a few times if she would just do a reading for me, and she said, "No, you're not ready. No, you're not ready."
Hmm.
It was just keep putting it off. And finally, one day I said, "Listen, I'm ready.
Yeah.
If what you say and what you do is the real thing, I'm ready. I need to know what that's all about."
Okay.
And the interesting component about it was the fact that she started giving me this message of an experience that I had when I was a kid. And both sides of my family's from East Tennessee.
Okay.
So I understand that environment of the South kind of a thing.
Mhm.
As you mentioned
Right.
earlier before we started, that it was nice
Sure.
and warm there and
Yes.
everything was starting to change already. Um,
Yes.
but this experience she was explaining to me and describing was an event that myself and my grandfather had together working on his farm. And on the weekends, he was a Southern Baptist minister.
Okay.
So he would, go preach at his church and do all that stuff on the weekends. But during the week, he was working on his farm.
Okay.
And she starts explaining to me this experience that him and I shared that we didn't tell anybody that we shared this. So it was only the two of us that knew this, that this even happened. So we didn't
Right.
go back to the house and say, hey, we just did this. We went over into town and we just kept it as something that was ours, something that we
Sure.
shared. Good time. And he's explaining it and I'm bawling, crying because I'm
Wow.
remembering it. And I'm
Mhm.
like, how can this be? If
Yeah.
all these years I've been taught that this person who's giving me this message is quote unquote evil and a witch
Right.
and you don't
Yes.
mess with that type of stuff.
Yes.
But on the other side of it too, my grandfather, who's the Southern Baptist minister, giving the message through this person, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's blowing my whole world apart
Wow.
in that
Wow.
moment
Yeah,
because
sure.
being told in that fundamental Baptist environment that this is not something you mess with. This is something you stay away
Yes.
from. You don't get
Yes.
involved with it.
Yes.
But the reality of it was that was my awakening to realizing that all my sensitivity, all the things that I experienced early on, even the spirits that I saw, that was all real. And he
Yes.
told me that it was. And he
Yes.
said, there's even more
Yes.
to it than what you've experienced so far.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's okay to be who you are and have this
Absolutely.
understanding because
Absolutely.
it's who you need to be moving forward.
Yes. Yes. And it's so beautiful. So beautiful, but I understand and I feel that from you, Rich, like that mind-blowing, like, thought that I've been told and taught something for my entire life, right? And then at some point as an adult, something shifts that is so real, like you said, there's no denying it, and that's what I find a lot of times people are very skeptical until there's something happens, they have some sort of experience like you're saying, like you're
Yeah,
mentioning, that there's no explaining it, there's no way that someone else would have known this, and then that is mind-boggling, and it's this huge shift, it's an awakening, it's a shift, and yeah, it's like you said, it takes a while to almost like recover from that to say, "Oh my goodness, like everything that I thought was true is not," and vice versa.
yeah,
But what I'm feeling from that and from what you're saying is that people that have like us that, have those highly sensitivities, we're not meant to be put in a box. We're not meant to be
right.
put in a category like this is what everybody does, right? And that's how you're brought up because that's just the world in general, right? Like everyone has to fit in their nice little box and category. And when you realize that you're sensitive and when you realize you get older, like, well, no, right? I have gifts, I have things to do. My soul is a reason to be here. We all have a purpose.
Right.
It can be exhilarating and it can be scary at the same time, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
Well, I had again, not similar to your experience, but that pinnacle moment where I realized, yeah, all of the sensitivities that I had been looked down on my whole life, because this, I don't know, I could go back maybe 10, 12 years of me realizing, wait a minute, right? This doesn't compute. This is
Yeah,
actually my superpower, but
right.
it's been framed as something negative, right?
Yes.
So that is life changing for sure. And I agree 1,000% with you in that it's however you look at it. And religion does play into that because whatever you believe and you grow up and you think this, right, that's bad for someone to psychically tell me something. I believe you said something in there about that woman being the way that you get the message. So I believe
Yes.
that God and our angels, they send messages through other people and so people
Yep.
who are highly sensitive and empathic, they are just able to communicate the things that maybe we other people ourselves are not able to receive that message. So if you can frame it and look at it that way, that and this happens all the time in my work, that I'm meant to give you a message that you need to hear today, right here and
Yeah.
right now on your journey, that you need that for your life, then I'm meant to deliver it to you. What you do with it, that is on you, right? What you
Exactly.
choose to do with that information is for you. If I may, just to like kind of piggyback on that,
Yeah.
is that I realized at some point when I was once I was doing Reiki, it was massage, which, and then the Reiki, because I think the energy piece and component of that opened up gifts that I had and didn't realize and didn't know how to use, right? So it was like
Yeah.
this huge awakening within myself. And that's when I started getting messages for people when I worked. And people would just, it's one thing if someone comes for an energy session, they're giving that consent to say, yeah, I'm looking for whatever you feel from me, right? I want to know. But I often it happens all the time. Someone's coming for a massage, right? And everyone knows what a massage is. So they could just be like, oh, I slept wrong and my neck hurts. So I'm coming for a massage. They didn't sign
Yeah.
up for me to tell them some spiritual guided message. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
But so this is something that has been very challenging for me. And I'm still learning to master in that I pick up on things because I'm literally not only touching someone's body, but I'm also in their aura, in their energy space, right?
Yeah.
So because I'm sensitive and because I'm also tuning in now intentionally, I'm picking up on messages for them. So this, years ago, I was like, I didn't know what to do with that. It was like, okay, I get this piece of information for this person, but they didn't ask me for it. They didn't come here for it, right? So what do I do with that? Do I swallow it? Do I keep it to myself? Do I do it, and my own fears crept in of like, if I say this to this person, they're going to think I'm crazy. Okay. Right.
Right.
I sat rich in that space for a while, right? Until finally I feel very grateful and blessed that I kind of created my own spiritual tribe around me, and I started surrounding myself with people who were similar to me, right? Like-minded spiritual practitioners, people that were raising their frequency, people that were basically almost like mentoring me at the time. And I
Yeah.
remember a very, very dear friend and colleague of mine, I said to her exactly that, like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these messages that I'm getting. And because I think a couple times I did deliver it, and I did get that like crazy, like person like
Yeah.
looking at me like I just came to a spa for a massage. Like I didn't come here for a spiritual reading. Right. So
Yeah.
it was a very weird space that I was kind of dancing in. And I remember because it was so pivotal in my life, my friend and colleague, and at the time was more of like a mentor to me and still is even. I've run things by her. She said to me, Deanna, if you get a message when you're working on someone, whether it's massage or Reiki energy healing, you are doing that person a disservice if you don't share the information that you pick up on. And
Yeah.
that was huge, Rich, huge for me because when then again, everything is perspective and how you frame it. I started
Right.
thinking, okay, so someone comes to me, I pick up on something and I feel like I'm supposed to give them a message, but I don't because of my own human fears, right? My own fears of like, oh, they're going to judge me. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think they
Yeah.
think all these things. So then I don't give them that information. Now they've gone back into their world and they need their soul needed that information, but I didn't give it because I was too scared, right? And that happened
Right.
for a while. So when I framed it that way, I realized, okay, well, if I get a message for someone, I'm going to push through the fear. I'm going to push through my own insecurities of like, they're going to judge me, and I'm going to deliver it anyway because they need to know this information. And they
Yeah.
can choose to do whatever they want with it. But I know that I could go to sleep that night and know that I delivered that message that I was supposed to. So that has
Right.
helped me. And that's, it's been years of honing that. And honestly, Rich, I still have times because of, again, with anything, when you hone a skill, the more you practice things, right? The things get stronger, you get better, you start to master things. I get some pretty intense messages and I
Yes.
still I will I mean, I've gotten so much better at like I will always deliver it because I do feel called that that's what I'm supposed to do and that's how God and the angels are using me. But I still
Yeah.
have moments like, "Oh God, this person is going to think I'm insane." Okay. So I just like will pray like, "Okay, guide me," but I always deliver. And I sometimes will even say that like this might sound crazy or not sure if this is going to land or it's going to hit, but I'm relaying what I received because
Yeah.
that is then for you to take with it. And 98% of the time, 98% of the time, Rich, it lands and they're like, that's exactly what I needed. That's exactly what I needed to hear. It's another step on their journey that they need for themselves. Oh, sorry. 1 second. I don't know what happened on my screen. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yep, I can
Something
still
just
hear you.
happened on the screen. Okay.
Yeah, it's
So
just freezing
I
a little.
still sometimes have to push through that human side of yeah, of just and nobody wants to be judged type of thing, right? But I think at the same time, because it's landed so many times where many times people break down in tears or they're like, that's exactly what I needed to hear, or how did you
Yeah.
know? Or wow, like so when those things happen, then it's like it's for me, it's more validation and gives me the courage to keep delivering those messages.
No, exactly. I think that was a perfect piggyback because that was kind of where I was going to ask the next question was that connection and realization as you're doing the massage and starting to do the Reiki, which is a different form of energy work. And a lot of people may not understand that. Can you kind of give a brief example as if maybe you're giving it to a 5-year-old so it's easy for the audience to understand what essentially is Reiki for those that don't or haven't
Mhm.
experienced it or don't know what it is?
Sure. So Reiki is a form of energy healing. There are other forms. I don't know if you've ever heard of like cranial sacral or
Oh, yeah. Yep.
polarity therapy, right? So there's other forms, but Reiki is a Japanese form of energy healing and it does follow the energy centers of our body, but basically the simplest form I can put it in is that we are all made of energy. There's energy inside of us, there's energy around us. So when life happens, some of that energy can get stuck in certain areas in our body for a multitude of reasons. Okay. If you
Yep.
have a physical pain, you have this chronic pain in your knee and you're like, I don't know why I'm having this pain in my knee, but I've gone to the doctor and they said everything's fine, but yet I still have this pain. Right. Um,
Yeah.
or more on the emotional side, that whole saying of like with a heavy heart, when you lose someone or something, a pet, an animal, when there's grief, that energy gets stuck in our heart. There's no doubt about that. Um,
Right.
when people say the weight of the world on their shoulders, they feel that responsibility. That is a real thing. It's the energy of that feeling, that intensity. As far as going with mental health, with anxiety or depression, right?
Yeah.
That energy is all stuck in our head, right? So there's different places in our body that energy can become stuck. And typically, what happens if energy stays too long in the body, stuck somewhere, it will manifest into something physical, some sort of illness, sickness, pain in some fashion. So,
Yeah.
what Reiki energy healing does is it moves whatever energy is stuck in our body, it moves it so that our life force energy can be moving normally again. So you can call it life force energy, chi, you can call it from the science side. Again, I speak from many different angles. The
Yeah.
science side of it, it's bringing the body back to homeostasis where everything is balanced and aligned. But it's allowing, if you think of anything like a tube or a funnel of flow of like maybe water flowing through, if something think about that in your sink and your pipes, right? If something is backed up in your pipes and you put the water on, well, the water can't get through, right? It's stuck. So
Yep.
it's the same thing with energy. I use the analogy a lot because I'm very visual and I know a lot of people are very visual. And for a child, this would be a perfect analogy of if you're driving in your car and you're driving on a highway and there's 3 lanes going one way and 3 lanes going the other way, and everything is moving properly, and that's fine. And then suddenly there's an accident and all of those cars get stuck. They're backed up, right?
Yeah.
They can't move. And what happens then? You call the fire department, police, EMS, they come in and they move that accident out of the way, and now all of those cars can move normally again. So it's the same concept in our bodies that when we have stuck energy wherever that is, our life force energy cannot move properly. And so things get stagnant, things get stuck. We it's just hard to continue on, especially, with the anxiety piece is a big one in our heads. I speak to that a lot because we live in a very noisy modern world with so much external
Right.
stimulus, so much noise, so many distractions, so much of that many people will deal with anxiety, and there's different levels of it, of course, but that's all in the head. And people can't shut their brains down. And I see it all the time, Rich, that people will come for a massage and they might be physically lying on the table and they're like, yep, I'm ready to relax, right? I'm ready for my muscles and body to relax. But yet they cannot shut down their brain, their mind. And I feel it. That's the stuff that like I feel. Like you can tell me,
Right.
yeah, yeah, I'm relaxing, right? But I know you're not, right? Because you
Yeah.
can't shut the brain down. So Reiki helps with anything and everything. It can do no harm. It can only help. But there is, of course, that spiritual component to it, which is why a lot of people, it's the fear of the unknown we talked about. If they don't know what it is, then they're like, oh, I'm going to just keep that over there because I don't know what that is. But
Yeah.
I speak to it all the time that if you're just curious and if you're just open to saying, you know what, I've never done any kind of energy work before, but I'm willing to try. All you need is an open mind and an open heart to say, let's see what comes. Because
Right.
typically, and I do get some of that. I do get some people that will come and say, you know what, I've never tried it and I just want to try and see what it is. And it can open up their world in so many ways. And it typically does. But I also get a lot of people that come to me in desperation, meaning they are in some
Yes.
sort of physical pain, they're in some sort of emotional, mental pain, their anxieties through the roof. It's basically like it's the last resort, right? Like they're like, I don't know
Right.
what else to do. I'm in
Yeah.
such pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and I'm willing to try. And I see that a lot. And I don't, and I'm happy to help people no matter where they are. But it's just, it does sometimes make me, I find it interesting that people will only try more holistic healing when they're completely desperate and have no other alternative, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's the sad part of, I would say, is a lot of societal structuring,
Yes.
societal perspective on what are the possibilities of healing, all that type of stuff. And
Yeah.
the way that you described it was a perfect scenario. It was very simplified. It was very to the point. It was
Good.
fantastic. And
Good.
I appreciated that because it's something that has been practiced for centuries.
Exactly.
It's not something that's new. It's not been presented to a whole lot of people enough to the point where they can see it as a realistic possibility to try this to help them heal in a certain way.
Absolutely. And I, speak to that a lot, Rich. Exactly. Like these holistic alternative modalities, they've been around for thousands and thousands of years. If you
Yeah,
think about energy healing, acupuncture, plant therapy, right? All of
yeah,
those different things have been medicine, have been for healing in
yeah,
ancient worlds, right? For a reason, for a very valued reason. And
right,
that's why I speak to that. I believe that whatever your situation you're dealing with, whatever pain or struggle is in your life, you can approach it from a cohesive Western and Eastern modality situation. And that's why a lot of people are leaning more into functional medicine and holistic doctors, DOs, because again, I don't judge and say, oh, no, Western medicine, you don't want medicine, you don't want surgery, you don't, they have their place. They absolutely have their place.
yeah,
Um, but I believe that a combination of those can be very helpful. So, for example, if someone is struggling with major anxiety that is debilitating for their life, whether it's a younger person, an older person, I don't look down on them getting on some sort of low dose medication to be able to manage in a daily
mm,
world. But
yep,
but I say that at the same time, I would advise that they then get some sort of clinical therapy or then energy work or practices, holistic practices to help them get to the root of where the anxiety is coming from. So that at some point, so it's with the intention that at some point they will be able to wean off of that medication. Where I
right,
see a problem is when people have some sort of pain or illness and they're looking for just a medication to just be a quick fix and then they're like, okay, I'll get on this medication for the rest of my life. So then that fixes it. That doesn't address the root issue or the root cause of what is actually causing that pain. So again, it's how you look at it. If you realize that they can work in conjunction for your higher good, for getting to the, because that's what I speak about, mind, body, spirit, and getting to the root cause of things. I don't want to put band-aids on things. I want to
Right.
help you get to what is the underlying cause of the pain, and that doesn't get fixed overnight. And then that is completely opposite of the world that we live in, right? We want
Yeah.
instant gratification, we want an immediate fix. I want to feel better today, but healing doesn't work that way, and I speak to that all the time. Healing is a process and it takes time and patience and hard work. If you're
Right.
willing to put all of those things in, you will get to a point where you're feeling much better. But most people typically do want that quick band-aid.
For sure. The part of your work that you're doing now, where you're actually speaking to people that are dealing with healing and recovery and that type of thing, at what point did you realize that was part of your calling as well, that you needed to step into that?
Yeah, it's awesome. I started realizing that I was educating people on the table, meaning they come for a massage,
Yeah.
but massage career is similar to, I joke, like a hairstylist or a bartender, right? Like someone that people just open up and unload
Yeah.
unload to. But
Mm.
I don't say that in a bad way. I say it in a complimentary way, that people feel safe to do that, right? You go get your
Yeah.
hair, at least for women, you go get your hair done and you just like, you're just telling your life story. Well, it's based on trust, because people of course have to feel that they can trust you, but it's
Yeah.
also a confidential space, so they know that it is confidential. They also know that I'm an outside party. So whatever you're telling me, divulging about your family, your this, your job, I don't know them. So it's okay, right? Um
Yeah.
but I do like to speak that it I do like to think that it speaks to my unique gifts of that empathy and compassion, because people feel that from me, and that is my intention, to make people feel safe. So people will typically tell me their deepest darkest secrets, which is interesting, Rich, because that has always been in my life. I'd never understood why. Right?
Right.
I used
Yeah.
to say in my younger days, even my teens and 20s, I'm like, am I wearing a sign on my head that says come and tell me your deep dark secrets? Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. Which now I can connect and say, okay, it's because people do feel safe around me and comfortable to tell those things. Now I can understand. But I used to, again, in my younger days, be like, I don't really get why everyone's confiding in me. But now I look
Yeah.
at that as, okay, well, now I've got major tools to be able to help people, right, that do confide in me. So I did start recognizing that people would come for a massage and just start telling me their world and what's going on in their life. And I was advising, I always say I'm not clinically trained. I'm not a psychologist or a
Right.
psychiatrist.
Yeah.
However, I do have a lot of life experience and I do have a lot of
Right.
wisdom and knowledge spiritually, energetically, that I know can be of help to people. And I do think that it also plays into that. I say I'm an open book. If I know that if I share, so like we talked about earlier, if someone's telling me something going on in their world and I recognize that something in my own personal world, a story, can help them, then I will
Right.
gladly share. I am an open book that way. I'm happy to share things that have happened in my life if I know that can help somebody else. So what ends
Yeah.
up happening is I'm educating about the body. I'm educating about the connection about mind, body, spirit, educating about the body keeps the score, right? Things that
Yeah.
are happening in your world, you might not think they're stressful, but they are, and they're playing a part in your physical health. So I do a
Yeah.
lot of so I realized at some point I was doing a lot of educating and advising to someone coming in for a session. And I get this a lot. And I try to laugh about it. People will say, oh my goodness, like, that felt like a therapy, like a clinical, like a psychotherapy session, and I joke and I say, "Oh, it's two forms of therapy. You're getting
Right.
massage therapy, but you're also getting, other talk therapy," because people feel cared for, they feel nurtured, they feel safe, they feel enlightened. And so you're right. It's so funny because going into becoming, massage therapist, I had no idea that's how it would start to like take shape. Um,
Yeah.
in my world. And I'm happy that I have gifts that can help people. But yes, I do, and I'll be honest, I do speak to that fact that I think that's why my clients, my specific clients, do come back to me specifically. They could go, I mean, in Charlotte or any big city, you're going to have, like, you can get a
Right.
massage on any corner in any
Right.
area. So I do feel, and I say that to people, I feel like people are divinely led to me. Anyone who has found me and continues to come back to me for sessions, it's not a coincidence. It's that they want to receive services from me specifically, because I do feel that at this point, you can come for a massage, but there's so much more happening on an energetic and spiritual level that, again, most people like. I do have situations where someone will come for me for a massage and they are just looking for just a massage. And when they realize, oh boy, there's a lot deeper stuff happening here, they check out. And that's okay too, right? If they're not speaking to when people are ready, if they're not ready to address deeper things that are happening in their body and in their world, that's okay. I plant to see that at some point they will be. And even if it's not with me, that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's also the reason why I wanted to have you on, was because of the creative community doesn't always get enough information about mind, body, spirit connection. And being creatives, we're working in that lane already in terms of whatever modality of creativity we're working with. It's kind of that source energy type scenario.
Mhm.
We're creatives and we're doing the creator's work,
Yes.
essentially,
Yes. I love that. I love
right?
that.
And so, even from my own personal journey of spending many years in just psychotherapy, cognitive therapy, behavioral therapy, all those different things, and realizing that I never would always get all of the answers that I was asking questions about.
Mhm.
And fortunately, because I'm my own advocate for my own well being, which I try to convey as well, as you have to be your own advocate,
Yes. Agreed.
because you don't always find the right thing the first time out.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate to have therapists that I've worked with that have allowed me the leeway to go out and look at other things. And they would tell me straight away that I don't have the answer to that, Rich,
Right.
but this person may.
Right.
Why don't we try to see if we can get you in with them, work with them for a little bit, see if that answers your questions and gets to the root of something.
Sure.
Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. And they would always say, just bring back the information and let's talk about it. And maybe it'll be something that we learn
Mhm.
that helps us to convey to somebody else.
Sure.
So, because of my own journey and finding more of a straightforward path with using modalities that are more ancient than traditional medicine, I want to always present that to the creative community because I feel that it's helped me so much. I want to help them
Yes.
just as much as well. And
Absolutely.
just be and also too, our stories have aligned today just in so many different ways that I think that's the
Yes.
commonality that allows it to be relatable to the audience as well.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that. And if I may, I mean, speaking directly to your creative audience,
Yeah,
because I feel like I see this a lot. Creatives are super sensitive, super intuitive, super just they have a superpower of their own. But in
yeah,
the world that we live in, it is looked down upon in a way that, I don't even think I have to explain. Just looked down upon, right? Which I find so ironic because in the world we live in, so many people admire and value celebrities, but yet many celebrities, right, are creatives, right?
yeah,
Singers,
yeah,
dancers, movie actresses, actors, right? Like, and they probably all, I think, I don't know, I love Ed Sheeran. He speaks to that a lot, that he
yeah,
was the weird kid, right? That he
yeah,
was a
yeah,
kid that people made fun of and was very quiet and this and that because that's typically what happens. You kind of go with like a turtle, you go within your shell and you kind of withdraw because you're told that you're different, right? But I choose to look at it different in a really good way rather than different in a bad way, like you don't conform. Back to what I said, some people are not meant to be put in a box, right? And to be
Right.
put in some category. So what I feel how it relates specifically to my work, Rich, is that I say this a lot. I feel that with massage and energy healing and coaching, I feel like I'm holding space and very sacred space for someone to connect to themselves, to ignite the light inside of them and find what they are meant to be doing in this world. Some people are looking for, like, I don't know what my purpose is. Some people know what their purpose is, but they need some help creatively to figure out how they're meant to share their gifts. I believe everybody has unique gifts that we are meant to share in this world and to
Yeah.
make it a better place. And so many people are lost in that sense, or they could be creative and know they have a gift of painting or sculpturing, but they just don't know what to do with it. Or they have so many limited beliefs of themselves and they have no confidence because they've been beaten down that that's not a real thing or that's not a real career or whatever the case is. So I feel like I help people find their power, if that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, I could get technical. That's your solar plexus chakra. It's right under your rib cage. Like that is where in your body, that energy center is all about your superpower, the essence of who you are, what you are meant to do here on this earth. And so I activate that. I intentionally open that for people so that they can then connect and find clarity in their life of what they're meant to do next in their world. So I believe it's like I am all about the light, about shining your light, spreading light, but in my world I feel like I hold that space for people to connect so that they can shine bright in the world that they live in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thank you. Because I know that's what the audience needs to hear. The creatives need to hear that. Absolutely. And also, too, what I'm going to do is make sure that all your contact info is in the description of this episode. So if somebody wants to reach out, you can do that. If you're in the Raleigh and Charlotte area, you can do something in person. And it's always highly beneficial if a healer can put their hands on you. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I can speak to that for a moment, just so, again, for your audience, if anyone would like to reach out. Yes, obviously, if we're talking massage, you do need to be more local within the Charlotte area.
yeah,
However, many of my services are virtual as far as we can do Reiki energy healing virtually, which many people are skeptical, like, oh, it's not the same thing. It
right.
is. The effect is I get it, what people do like to have exactly, like, my hands physically on them, and I totally understand that, but the effect is the same.
Yeah,
I can do intuitive coaching by Zoom type of thing, as well as the narcissistic abuse support group. We've actually gone virtual because I was running it in person in both Charlotte and Raleigh for a while, but I realized that if we do it virtually, we can expand and reach people in other states as well. So
nice. Yeah,
that platform, we do monthly or meetings by Zoom type of thing. So these are all things that your audience can participate in if they feel called to, if it relates to them, if they choose to. So yes,
yeah,
absolutely. I want to stress that.
yeah, for sure. And again, too, from my perspective, so that the audience gets a connection point. A lot of the work that I've done with Marilyn, the lady that I mentioned earlier on,
Hmm.
is all been virtual.
Yeah.
So it's not always a scenario that you have to be in front of somebody for them
Right.
to be able to work with your energy field and
Yes.
tap into that and have the knowingness of what needs to take place for you.
Yes, exactly. It is just exactly that. It's a tapping into someone's energy, and you don't have to be in person. There's energy right now, right? We're on a Zoom, right? I'm
Yeah.
feeling your energy, and we're not in the same place physically, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
there absolutely is. And I just want to speak really quick to that. That years ago, I was receiving a cranial sacral session with a woman, and I was skeptical myself. This was years ago. She was not physically here and she was literally in Hawaii. So you're talking, like other side of the
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
right? And I was skeptical. I'm like, how can this be? And cranial sacral is really interesting because it really hones in on like specific areas of the brain for
Yeah.
like releasing trauma and dulling, PTSD, like that kind of stuff. And I was blown away, like blown away. And I was working in energy at the time, but I was like,
Yeah.
how can that be? And so I think I needed that experience for me to realize, yeah, absolutely. And so that's why I can do Reiki's virtual sessions the same way as if you were standing here. Yes, I'm physically not, but I try to create the same kind of environment, with the music and the meditation. And like I try to create as much as possible without, physically laying hands on you. But I do want to speak to that too. I have a license to touch people because of being a massage therapist, but there are
Right.
energy healers and workers that unless, if you're a massage therapist or you're a nurse or a physical therapist, you have that license to physically lay your hands on someone. But otherwise, Reiki is typically it's a hovering over
Right.
somebody's
Yes.
energy field.
Yep.
And so just putting that out there in the sense that again, like even if you're in person with someone, they're working about in your energy field, and that's what it really is all about.
Yeah. This was a fantastic conversation, Deanna. I truly
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
I
Uh,
enjoyed it very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I always want to leave the audience with just one simple thought at the end of each one of these sessions, and that is
Sure.
to always listen to your heart, but
Yes.
be kind to your mind.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Listen to your heart and be kind to your mind. I love that very much. Wow, this has been wonderful, Rich. I appreciate your time and your energy, and I honor who you are and your journey. And I thank you for the opportunity. It's been really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Thank you.
Absolutely.